Hi folks, welcome to this stream. I've already teased the topic of today's stream on Instagram, and I will be looking at the very famous Dillon powder drop or powder dispenser or powder measure. This is a very popular, very proven design of powder dropper for a, this is mainly designed for a progressive press. And I have recently acquired 4 old Dillon powder droppers for a very reasonable price from a friend who was leaving the hobby. And I spent quite some time cleaning, improving, upgrading, and fixing these powder measures. So I would now like to talk about a couple of fixes that I've done and the upgrades that are possible for this powder measure, and how they affect my consistency and how they improved the way I'm working with this powder measure. First of all, I downgraded this one to the state that I originally got it. First of all, one neat trick is I was just throwing all of these cast zinc or whatever material it is, all these cast pieces. I just threw them in the in a tumbler. I don't tumble my brass cases, but tumbling other things like worn dies or these cast zinc cases can be really nice. And look how shiny this thing has become again. I am really happy with the results. You don't want to know how it looked before. The tube, the powder tube, can be replaced. There's replacements by Dillon. They are they're not very expensive, but they're hard to find in stock here in Europe. I got replacement tubes for a couple of the powder drops, and this one is one of the better looking ones. So I was mostly just removing some stickers that the previous owner applied to this tube, and I just cleaned it up. So the most important part about this is the actual system, the way the powder is dispensed here. This is, if I understood correctly, this is an intermediate version where you've got a little rod that attaches here that pulls down, and the case will actually push up here and trigger the drop. And once you lower the ram, a little thingy attached to the ram is going to pull on a rod here and pull it back down. Okay, so this is an intermediate version, and this is actually the new and improved version of this so-called bell crank. If you have this version, I think you're already on a kind of modern version, but I'm going to show you why I do think it's worth upgrading to this so-called Failsafe version, because it's, together with a couple of other fixes I've done, it's a very nice feature. So first of all, let me just go through the upgrades that are possible. I'm just going to replace this old style bell crank with the new style bell crank, the so-called Failsafe. These are available as single pieces, so you can just get this thing together with one of these little plasticky things that ride in the slider, and one of these additional spring washers. So you can just get this part, and this is great to upgrade your second, third, and fourth powder dropper. But if you don't have the new powder drop system installed, it might be worth getting the upgrade kit by Dillon. So Dillon also offers a full upgrade kit, but this only makes sense for your first powder drop. And this is what you get in addition in the upgrade kit. It's a little hex wrench, which is kind of useless because you're very sure you already have one of those. It is the part that attaches to the shell plate of your press in case this isn't already mounted on your press. If you already have this bell crank with the old style of guide rod, you will probably already have this part, so you can also disregard this part. And then there's a very nice tool here. This is called the shell plate alignment tool. This is very helpful when you take your press apart. You can also buy this individually for 15 euros, or I don't know how many dollars. This is very helpful when you take apart your press. You have to take apart your press to mount this part. So in order to put it back together again, they included this. This is basically dropped into a Dillon powder funnel, and you put it into station 1 of a tool head, and this part basically goes into the priming and primer hole of your shell plate, base. So you can just finely adjust the orientation of your shell plate base so that it is 100% perfectly aligned with the drillings in the tool head for your dies. Good part, if you don't have this yet, and if you want to upgrade your powder droppers, it's worth getting the full upgrade kit, because you're going to get one of these, and you are going to get one of these new and improved return rods or guide rods. You need these for the new bell crank system, so you need at least one of those. Let's just assume you've got this part covered. You don't need to reassemble, and you already got one of these guide rods because you already have a new pattern powder drop. Then you just need this part. This part is included in the upgrade kit, and you can buy it individually. What's the yeah, you can just buy it individually as a little assembly. It comes with this little washer. The washer's got a little locker inserted here, and it comes with an additional plastic piece and a spring washer here. And I'm just gonna install it. No, let me just remove the old part. I'm just gonna remove the old part, and we're gonna get rid of this one, because I want to take a look at some other things that you might want to fix in the same time. So we need this from our old assembly, and the old screw is no longer used. It uses some aggressive, like a little aggressive cut washer that bites into the case here. This has been replaced by this little washer with a little plasticky ring in there. So I'm gonna take this out, and this is also from the bell crank, from the new bell crank. It's included in this kit. So basically, this is what you get in the bell crank upgrade kit. This is what you need from your old, and this is what you can. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna put it into a little bag where all the old bell cranks go. Okay. So one other thing that I learned is worth checking out with your Dillon powder drops, and this is something that I came across because I was investigating powder spillage, and it was driving me crazy because I was getting like 4 or 5 kernels of powder spillage with every drop. I was using the large slider, but this also applies to the small slider. I was using the large slider with a bit more coarse, like a larger grain powder, and it was driving me crazy. So what I did is, on the downstroke, every time on the downstroke, whenever there was a little bit of vibration in the press, I was getting kernels falling out of the little dispenser. So I took a little bore cam, like I've got a little like one of these flexible Chinese bore cams, and I just gently lowered the ram so that the case is out of the way, and I took the bore cam and went in here. I went in there and looked around if there's any places where powder was piling up, and I found it. I found a little place in there, and I realized that this is an issue with all the old Dillon powder droppers that I bought. So this might be an issue with your powder dropper as well. Let me disassemble this powder dropper because I want to get to a point where I just have the main body. I'm going to take out this screw. There are actually a couple of Dillon powder droppers where there is no screw here. I had 2 of those, and I upgraded them to the screw version with a very simple trick. You use some kind of hot air blower and heat up the body. You heat it up and you fix it in a vise, and you really give it some time. You heat it up. You don't make it too hot. Give it like 80 degrees, maybe 70, 80 degrees. Let it sit for a while. Let the glue melt that holds this part in place. And don't make it too hot because you don't want the plastic to get soft. Just give it some time to melt the glue, and then start gently twisting the powder tube out, and you're gonna be able to remove it. And then you can take some sandpaper and sand down the rim here, and then you can thoroughly clean this part here because there's going to be leftovers of the glue. And what you're then going to do is you're just going to drill some holes through here and through here, and you just put in some screws that match the holes. Works really well. It's a great upgrade. I really recommend it. It greatly helps being able to clean and maintain that body assembly. But now let's have a look at the little issue that I found. So yeah, I found that powder was accumulating right here. If you look in here, oh, there you can see it. Okay. Here, this little tube here, this drop tube here, is press fit into this body, and this little drop tube, it ends in a little funnel that goes in here, and there is a little gap between the case inside here. If you look inside here, it's really difficult to see. Let me see if I can zoom in. No, zoom in. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in. I'm gonna grab a little light. Okay, let's see if I... Okay, this should be much better. Okay, now we got it. Okay, there we go. Can you see this? This little space here is where the powder was piling up. There's a little rim here because the drop tube wasn't hammered deep enough into the body, and this is quite a delicate part because it's I try to remove this. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna zoom out again. So I tried removing this also to sand it down a little bit, like to give it a smoother finish up here, but it's pretty much impossible to remove this. So my second thought was, well, let's just hammer it in all the way so that it closes that little gap that we have up there. And in order to do that, what I came up with is I took a little piece of wood here, and you can rest this part of the case, you can rest it on the wood, so you don't so you've got like a nice resistance to work against. And then I took a little hot air, like a little hot air blower here, and I let it heat up the case a little bit. I'm putting it on 200 degrees. These things, if you don't have these, maybe try a hairdryer, or try I don't know, anything you can think of to heat this up a little bit, because I really think heating this up is going to make, like, it's going to greatly reduce the risk of breaking something. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm heating up the body here, the zinc body. I think it's some kind of zinc or other alloy. Gonna give it some time to heat up properly, and I'm actually gonna put on some gloves here to make sure I don't burn my fingers. Okay, what we're gonna do is we are going to be resting this body on this piece of metal, and then I'm going to take this brass punch. Brass is nice for this purpose because it is softer than the metal up here, so there's very little risk of damaging the drop tube metal. And I'm going to start hammering the drop tube further into the body assembly, and I'll frequently be checking if the gap is still visible. So let's see. There we go. Oh, I think it's very difficult to read the temperature of metal with this. Okay, I think it's warm enough. I think the metal is too reflective to give me an infrared reading here. So I'm just gonna drop the punch in here. It's giving me enough of a fit, of a tight fit here to help hammer this in. And now I'm gonna start hammering this in. Sorry for the loud noise. Maybe I should have warned you beforehand. Okay. You can see we're already moving in a little bit. I hope you can see that on camera, because there's a little, starting to get a little gap there. A little, yeah, step there. But we're not, there's still a little bit of a gap, and if I'm already at it, I want to make sure that this gap is gone. Like, yep, we've moved a little bit further down. Okay, the gap is closed. Let's zoom in. See if we can. Yeah, you can see it right there. There is no more gap, and you can see here it is now recessed a little bit. It moved a little bit into the dropper case housing, into the dropper body, and I have not yet noticed any disadvantages of doing this. I have loaded quite a couple of rounds yesterday, and it worked really well. Okay, so this is one of the big secrets of fixing an issue with powder spillage that I had with this dropper. Next step, I'm going to be reassembling this. Let me see how warm it is. Okay, I think it's okay to touch again. I just want to make sure it's not too hot for the plastic tube. When you screw into plastic, always make sure that you return to the beginning of the threads, and you're not creating a new thread as you screw in. And this is going to make sure that you are not ruining this this connection here. Okay, there we go. Never force a screw into plastic if there is already a threading. Okay, this is gone. Okay, so this stays as it is. I'm gonna put this over there. Little plasticky thing, stuff it in there, and gonna put this slider back in. Okay, here we go. So next thing is, for me, it's easiest to just put this on here, hold it, slide it in there, and then kind of try to juggle things around until they fit. So the big disadvantage of the new screw is you always need a wrench to hold it. Okay, make sure you put some tension on there. Okay, and now you've got the new Failsafe system. So what this system does in the first place is, okay, let's say this is all the way down. So let's say a case comes, the case comes in here and pushes the dropper up. Well, let me hold it here. So it pushes the dropper up. What happens is the slider goes forward. Oh, I'm really sorry, the camera's acting crazy with these reflections here. The slider goes forward and the powder is dropped. So what can happen now when you when you lower the ram a little bit, the case is going to move out of the powder dropper, and gravity might be enough to let the powder drop sink all the way down to a point where you are filling the slider again for a second drop. And this part here, this part has snapped up, and this part is now preventing let's say, it's going to look like this because you're going to have a little rod through there. But this part is now preventing the powder dropper to return and get another powder charge from the hopper. Instead, it's going to be resting against this failsafe lever here. And only when as you pull this further down, you are releasing the slider again, and it can now return back and get more powder. So this is the original idea of Dillon, why this was implemented. So when you lower the ram halfway, and for example you realize, oh, I forgot to place a bullet, and you put the bullet in, and then you return the ram up, you are not throwing another powder charge into on your charge station, on your powdering station. This is what this was meant for. But you are going to see that this is a very nice feature in combination with another little trick that I'm going to be showing you in a bit. Then there is another little trick that I did to reduce powder spillage, and this has to do with the little funnel piece here. I'm going to be touching the funnel piece with gloves once again because I don't want to get my fingerprints and fats on this funnel piece, and I'm going to show you a little trick. So this funnel piece here, especially the top part here, wasn't looking very good. So the top part here is what rides against the drop tube, and this was not looking very good. It was very coarse. You could see a lot of tooling marks and machining marks. So I took, from my own tools, I took a drill, like this, and I drilled into the funnel piece up here, and I kind of like this drill happened to fit very nicely into this top piece here, and I kind of smoothed out this funnel piece up here. Problem is, now you've got oil or drilling fluid all over this piece, and I had to clean it with isopropyl alcohol, and now it's clean, but it might be a bit sticky. So a great way to remove stickiness from parts that are supposed to work well with powder are these Redding or Imperial dry neck loop pearls. You can just put this in there like a case and lube it with the graphite, and it is going to help you greatly reduce the amount of powder that gets stuck initially. So, like often when I clean parts that get in contact with powder in my powder droppers, it's very annoying because after cleaning you will get places, you will always get these small places where powder gets stuck until you've run like I don't know, 50 or 100 charges through the dropper, and then everything's got a nice little coating on it. This is a very nice way of just adding the coating by yourself without having to throw dozens of charges through it. Okay, so this one has been fixed now. I'm going to switch over to my bench, and I will be, let's have a look if that's possible. Oh, still booting up. And on my bench I will do a little bit of adjustment with the powder dye, and then I will show you my neat little trick to not only remove another source of spillage, but also improve your consistency. And this has really helped me. I was very happy with this. So, I'm really sorry. This is what happens when you stream live. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna move over to my press. I hope the audio is still okay. I hope you can still hear me. So here's a little powder funnel piece that I have. I'm gonna drop it right in here. And this is my 308 setup. I'm not going to be working with actual powder here. I'm just going to work with an empty case here. And I will be using my large powder bar dropper. Okay, here we go. Okay, so dropping it up here. Tighten these screws a little bit. One neat thing that that really helped me is this little clamp here, the little clamp here that you screw in to keep this from twisting and moving. The holes here for these screws were pretty tight and annoyingly tight. So every time I wanted to loosen it to kind of empty the hopper, it was very annoying to do so. So I just drilled through here with a 5mm bit. You might not have 5mm bits, but it's something that I just happen to have, and it was quite helpful. If you can get your hands on, maybe there's an American, like an imperial drill size that is doing the same job. So what I'd like to do is I like to run the case up, and I like to see. Wait. Oh, maybe no. Like I would like to see the powder bar to be moved all the way to the end. And even if you're down at the end already, you might want to move a little bit further down, just to make sure that you are moving that powder bar all the way to the end. Once you've got that settled, I'm gonna take my comically large wrench. Like I'm so sorry. Look at this wrench. It looked a lot smaller in the pictures. It's gonna tighten this down really, really well. Come on. Okay. I don't want to over tighten it. It just needs to stay fixed. So now I can still return, like I can still turn this part here. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna put the rod in here. I'm gonna run it down once, run it up, and make sure that we get into that the top piece here gets to a position where this rod runs smoothly, and then I tighten these down. So now the dropper should be in a good orientation. Okay, now the next issue is, you can see, powder bar moves back and forth really nicely. The last issue that I had was whenever I was moving the case down, look at the slider. Look at the slider. I was moving the case down, the slider was still stuck at the end position. And only when I started pulling on it, the slider came back. So the slider was actually leaving powder inside the casing that wasn't thrown into the funnel. And when I returned the slider, this powder from inside the body that was lying in here, the powder that was lying in here, when I returned the slider was dropped into the funnel, and these were also occasionally single kernels that were dropping out as soon as the slider started moving. See, now the slider started moving by itself. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. It's very erratic. So if it's well lubed, if nothing's stuck, it does move a little bit by itself. But you want to make sure that slider returns before the case mouth is leaving the funnel, because as long as that case mouth is making contact with that hopper here, with that dropper here, all the powder is going to drop into the case. So you want that slider to return as long as the case mouth is still in contact with that funnel. And the funny thing is, along with my old powder droppers, I got these springs. And these springs were from a very old system of Dillon. They were put around this side of the body and this part of the slider. This is what this part of the slider used to be for. And they used to be the return mechanism. Now, if you add these springs together with the new Failsafe bell crank, look at what you get. Push it up. The slider 100% positively returns as you like. It is going to maintain contact with the case mouth all the way. All the powder that might still be up here in that slide is going to drop into the case mouth. And now the failsafe mechanism is stopping the slide. So the slide wants to return, but the failsafe mechanism, as I've demonstrated earlier on, is holding the slide back. So there is a lot of tension on that slide now. Now, as I release the failsafe mechanism, look what happens. Bam! It slams back. And this is giving you great consistency in your throws, because this is a very, very nice and consistent slam that you get on every return, that is going to make sure that a very even and consistent amount of powder settles into your slide. This really helped me increase my throw consistency. Look at it. This is just beauty. And wham! Nice. Like, this is the kind of consistency I want. The forward stroke consistency is nice. It goes directly up with the case, very consistent here, and the backward stroke is very consistent because it has this nice slam at the end that is going to fill that slider up nicely. And that's all. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope the audio isn't too terrible. It's been a great fun working with these Dillon droppers. I do really like them, and I do think they work much better with these little improvements that I made. And I hope you got something out of this presentation, some ideas to maybe fix or upgrade your Dillon droppers. Yeah, and most of all, thanks for watching. I've gotten some great feedback on my previous videos. I really appreciate it. I really love seeing thumbs up. I love to see comments. If you've got some criticism, especially regarding the way I am presenting this, this is unfortunately the best I can do with the limited time that I have. I just can't make the time to cut and edit my videos. I'm streaming them. I'm doing my best to do the streams somehow streamlined. Yeah, I'm really doing my best, yeah, I'm always open for constructive criticism. Thanks very much.